Let's look at an endgame situation here. What we want to find out is, can the king stop the pawn from queening? This is always a problem in the endgame. Now, in this example, we are not even using the black king. We just want to count and see, can the white king stop the black pawn? Now, we could sort of count and say, well, the king moves here, and the pawn moves here, and the king moves here, and the pawn moves here. That's a little complicated. It's hard to keep up with. And there is a method that we can use to figure it very simply and very easily. It's called the square of the pawn. Let me show you how it works, and then you can practice it. We make a square from where the pawn is. And we start the square by creating a diagonal. In this case, it would go down to C1, and then we would make a square of that diagonal, from that diagonal. Now, the question is, if it's white's move, can the king get in the square? If the king can get in the square, he can stop the pawn. Watch. The king moves here. He's in the square. The pawn is trying to queen, trying to get to H1, moves down. We have a new diagonal, a new square. The new diagonal goes from H5 down to D1, and then we make the square as before. Can the king get into the square? Well, yes, he gets into the square. So as the pawn moves down, the diagonal gets shorter, the square gets smaller. The king is trying to stay in the square. If he's once in the square, he can stay in the square. Watch what happens. The pawn moves, the square gets smaller.